Go ahead and point to Rhodesia on this map. Just use your index finger and point to Rhodesia. If you didn't pick here, you're incorrect. I'm not going to be able to give a perfect history here, but following the Second World War, the West was highly suspicious of the Soviet Union. They had gained nuclear weapons, and they were spreading communism like wildfire. And to stop the influence of the Soviet Union, proxy wars were set up to fight the Soviets indirectly through the spread of communism and influence, namely in Korea and Vietnam, a few other places in Eastern Europe, and some places were lost before that could take place, namely China and Cuba. But one country in particular that was not defended at all, that was allowed to be sacrificed to the communists, was, of course, Rhodesia. Rhodesia was the second to last country in a chain of nations that Cecil Rhodes had founded to give the British Empire a foothold in Africa that extended from Cairo all the way down to the Cape of Good Hope. Rhodesia was an agricultural superpower, marketed as such. They had sheep land and farming was easy. They became the breadbasket of Africa and exported food to other countries. This made them extremely wealthy, and their capital of Salisbury reflected that. It was a very cosmopolitan place, very attractive city with a lot of economic opportunities. They even had an airline and pretty much everything a Western nation could have. However, for ideological reasons, they declared independence from the United Kingdom. The United Kingdom would retaliate through sanctions and basically leave Rhodesia on their own. Rhodesia became a place where they had sought to maintain minority rule of the European settlers from the 1800s, and this would be, of course, excluding the vast majority of people there. However, the communists sought this as an opportunity to arm the neighboring nations, and China and the Soviet Union both did that. Now, in the West, you might think that only the West is capable of colonialism and influence, and in all matter of fact, China still has a very much active ongoing colonial effort in Africa. This can be seen in the movie Empire of Dust. American GIs fought alongside Rhodesians in this war. There's a book called Crippled Eagles talking about the American GIs that fought alongside. I'm not going to get into particular reasons why that happened, but the West also turned its back. The United States in particular turned its back. This was alarming considering that Jimmy Carter had visited Americana as governor of Georgia. Maybe it is just for personal reasons, but the United States did not assist Rhodesia in any way, despite it being publicly popular. So basically, Rhodesia was allowed to be sacrificed. It became Zimbabwe as part of the peace process. Robert Mugabe won the first election, and slowly over time decided to take farmland away from European settlers and founders of Rhodesia and give it to his own people. This, of course, led to all kinds of ethnic tensions, and eventually white farmers would leave and farms in Zimbabwe would start to fail. The once breadbasket of Africa became a starving nation, and no longer exporting food, their currency managed to hyperinflate, and they had to print up $100 trillion notes. Zimbabweans themselves, white Zimbabweans, would go to other countries and farm, and later, after Mugabe realized his mistake, would return. They also became some of the highly prized mercenaries. So, we're going to go back and look at a very favorite card game played by Rhodesians during the time that they were Rhodesian. Hello, and welcome to How to Play Umtali, a game for 2 players. This game was chosen as May's Game of the Month. There would be a celebration, but as you saw in the earlier portion of the video, there's no reason to celebrate. Now, you're going to be playing a game that's a lot like Gin Rummy. You're going to have runs and sets, but you'll also have marriages. You'll have pairs, a solo card that can be played along with jacks or any other melds that have been taken place by your opponent already. Jacks always get played by themselves, and you'll also have the same way you win, you have to go out. Then, unlike Gin Rummy, your opponent then is given the chance to come back at the end. He's given a chance to play one more turn. So we're going to do a draw to see who's the dealer. The higher card will go. Ace is always low in this game. There is no wrapping around the king. We're going to deal 10 cards to each player. The dealer will then decide if he wants to go first. He'll deal himself the 11th card. If he wants his opponent to go first, he'll deal them the 11th card. So now we're going to show our hands. Normally we would keep them hidden, but Whoever has 11 cards in hand will go first. And then they'll decide if they have any melds, they must lay them down immediately. So we have a marriage of a king and queen of the same suit. That will get melded immediately. We'll leave that 10 of clubs as the discard. Now, all other turns will consist of you first drawing a card, then putting down any melds if you have any, and then discarding face up unless you are going out, in which case you won't discard face up, you will discard face down, and then your opponent's given one last turn to try to go out. If he is unable to go out, any cards in hand will be used as points. Now, ace through 9 will score 1 point, 10 and face cards will score 5. You'll play 4 hands of this per game. The overall winner of the score after 4 hands will win the set. Usually you play to the best of 3 sets, but you can do it however you like. So we see South has gone out and scored himself 7 points based off the card values in North's hands. Now it'll be North's turn to deal. So North will give the cards a good amount of shuffling until they're comfortable. And then we're dealing 10 cards to each player, with the 11th being dealt to whoever the dealer wants to start first. So the dealer chose themselves. So we'll go forth and we'll see what happens this round. So we're putting our cards face up for everybody to see. Normally, as always, you'd keep them hidden. So now we see a jack, queen, and king are all played as single cards because the jack was played first. They would have been able to play that king and queen marriage individually if they would have wanted. Now, the only rule that you need to remember is that pairs can only be played if you're going out. They cannot be played unless it's a marriage. That's the only pair of cards that can be played on its own. If you are going out, you're able to play a pair of cards of the same value. Otherwise, you must not do so. So now we see North has discarded a queen. South discarded their ace they just drawn. And now we see a pair, so South will play that pair and go out. They now have accumulated 11 points to 0. It is now their deal, it is the third deal. So it goes back to South. South will shuffle really well and then deal 10 cards to each player, deciding who he wants to go first. And in this case, he decides his opponent should go first. So we'll see if that does any favors or not. So we see a jack is played as a single. We also have a king-queen marriage that can get played. We also see a set of 9s. Now, that king-queen was missed, but should have been played there. Remember, you are required to always play melds that you have in hand. We see a set of 6s played by South, and now it's North's turn. North will draw a card and decide what to do. They're thinking about that 3, but they discard the 7, so they should have still placed that meld of the marriage of king and queen of clubs down, but they somehow didn't. Instead, we see 3 kings played. That's one of the things about this game. So now North has gone out. That's a little bit confusing. South was unable to score any points, drew another card, but was unable to meld. So North will have gotten 4 points versus South's getting 11. Something that's a very confusing aspect of this game for those who play Gin Rummy normally is that you are required to show meld. So try to keep in mind all the time as you're playing this that you need to play melds as they become available and not later on. So this should have been North's deal. It is the 4th deal, so it's an even deal. I might have messed that up. Just pretend that North was dealing first. Not that it matters too much whether you deal your opponent the card first or yourself the card first. You do have a lot of leniency in this game as far as who gets dealt 11 cards and who gets dealt 10. So that's something that's an interesting aspect of this rummy versus other rummies out there. So once an opponent has made a meld, you're allowed to play single cards that would have gone onto that meld. Unlike a lot of rummies, you don't necessarily place them on that rummy according to the rules of this game, but being your own game, there's nothing I could see that would be a problem of just doing it yourself. So now we see that South has gone out again. This was the 4th hand, so they win the set. You normally play to the best of 3 sets. So, like always, if you actually want to play some card games out in public, perhaps this one with strangers, otherwise known as friends you haven't yet met, come to our subreddit Card Game Meetups. Post what city you're in, what games you want to play, what games you're willing to teach, what games you're willing to learn, and a public place to do it at. Do click under the show more in the description to see all the other videos that I like, as well as a link to a Discord server where we talk about card games all day, every day. It is a fun place, so go there and meet new friends, and do call up your existing friends and let them know that you would like to play some cards. They might say yes and they might say no, but you never know unless you call. And what good is living life if you don't call your friends every once in a while? Do like, subscribe, and share these videos with other people that you know love playing card games, and do vote for June's Game of the Month. This month looks like Liverpool actually has a chance, and I'll see you next video.